Here is the script written in a narrative, dramatic style, following your structure and requirements. Sometimes you simply outgrow the people you thought you'd spend forever with. Fiancé wrote those exact words to me just 2 days after I was forced to close my business and lost everything. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I simply replied with one word, truth. Then I boxed up her belongings, cleared my house, and walked out of the life I had built for her. Fast forward 6 months, and I walked into the most prestigious industry gala in the city, hand in hand with the CEO of a multi-million-dollar corporation. Face when she saw us. That was the moment I finally realized I had won the war and she didn't know. She was fighting. My name is Nate. I am 33 years old, and I wire buildings for a living. Oops. I don't mean I installed one ceiling fan in my cousin's basement and decided I was a contractor. I mean real structural, commercial, and residential electrical work. You know. I started pulling Romex at 20 for a master electrician who screamed in all caps and treated his tape measure like it was a holy relic. I worked my way through the apprenticeship, took every soul-crushing graveyard shift that nobody wanted, and stacked my certifications like gold bars. 5 years in, I earned my journeyman status. 10 years in, I had my master's license, a state inspector on speed dial. Reputation for never forever cutting corners. I own a shop called North Rim Electric. It's nothing flashy. I have a two-bay unit in an industrial strip, a 16-foot trailer, a used Chevy Silverado 2500, fizzer lifts that I financed when copper prices made me question every life choice I'd ever made. I track every cent in a spreadsheet, receipts, materials, labor, permit fees. Last year, my gross revenue was over 200,000, and after all the overhead, I paid myself a modest salary. It wasn't NBA money, but my bills were paid and my property was mine. Three-bedroom ranch that I bought 3 years ago with 20% down because I refused to make the banks rich. My Uncle Ron taught me that. He got torn apart by a nasty divorce where he lost his boat, his cabin, dignity. He's fine now, but he always tells me, protect your life like it's a scripture, Nate. So, I kept my finances separate. I made it clear to Sierra, my fiancée, that if we ever got married, we were signing a prenup. I told her kindly, showing her the spreadsheet, because that's how you know I'm serious. Sierra and I met 3 years ago at a friend's backyard cookout. She was 29, worked in HR, and had a laugh that made the world feel a little lighter. We dated for 2.5 years, and I truly believed we were a team. We walked my Mutt Ranger on Sundays. We spent Saturdays doing errands, and I didn't mind carrying her IKEA boxes. Even though those instructions are pure enemy propaganda, we got engaged, and I reset my grandmother's stone into a simple ring, she cried. She said yes, and I smiled like a fool. Few months left, Dean. But 2 months after the engagement, the temperature in our relationship began to climb. It wasn't a sudden spike, it was a slow, deliberate warming. She started wanting a bigger wedding. She wanted upgraded flowers, a high-end photographer, and a venue that cost more than my truck. The budget ballooned from 12,000 to nearly 35,000. I kept saying no, and she started calling me old school with a tone that felt like a sharpened knife. Then, winter hit. November through March, I ran 70-hour weeks because Granite Works had 3 massive builds going at once. I was exhausted, but I was providing. Sierra started saying, "You're married to your job, Nate." Fair enough. But then, the subtle request turned into demands. You see, shed. Send me links to restaurants with $18 salads and say when we're married, I don't want to think about bills. That sentence made my blood run cold. The breaking point came in a flash. Works. Project hit a massive snag. A supplier went bankrupt, and I was left holding the bag for thousands in materials I had already paid for. I lost the contract. Fees kid. I had to lay off my guys and close my shop temporarily to reorganize the debt. I came home, sat Sierra down, and explained that we needed to scale back our lifestyle for a few months. I told her we'd have to postpone the wedding. She didn't cry. She didn't offer to support me. She just stared at her phone, silent. 2 days later, she posted a photo of a latte on Instagram with the caption, Sometimes you outgrow people. Then she called me. She told me she was moving out, that she deserved someone who didn't view life as a spreadsheet, and that our engagement was over. She didn't even ask how I was doing. She just left. I didn't break down. I didn't drink. Expecting in. I took the box I had packed with her belongings, placed it on her doorstep, and blocked her number. I focused on the business. I started cold calling, grinding 14 hours a day, and bidding on the one contract. Renovation. Everyone else was afraid to touch. The renovation of the corporate headquarters for Romex Global. Against all odds, I landed it. The CEO, a brilliant woman who didn't care about my fiancé drama, very impressed by my efficiency and my books. She hired me as their primary contractor, doubling my income overnight. I wasn't just a business owner anymore. I was a partner. Months later, the industry gala arrived. Venturing. I was invited as a guest of honor for the Romex restoration project. I walked in, wearing a tailored tuxedo, with the CEO on my arm. The room was filled with the elite, and there, standing near the bar, was Sierra. Funes. She was with some guy who looked like he'd never held a tool in his life. She saw me. Her eyes went wide, scanning my expensive suit, the way people were shaking my hand, and the woman next to me. I walked right past her. She didn't sneer. I didn't stop. I didn't even acknowledge her existence. I felt a sudden, profound peace. The person she wanted to outgrow was the one who had built a life she could never imagine. Thanked while she was still searching for a sponsor on Instagram. I turned to my date, smiled, and forgot Sierra's name entirely. Justice isn't about revenge, after all. Justice is simply living a life so successful that the people who tried to tear you down become entirely irrelevant. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I had finally finished the job. They say that when you're building a foundation, you have to be careful about who you let stand on it. I spent 3 years building a life, a business, and a future with Sierra, thinking she was the anchor. Turns out, she was just the wrecking ball, waiting for the right moment to swing. Everything changed on a Tuesday when a single email from a client turned my world upside down, and Sierra decided. My lack of drive was the perfect excuse to trade up. Little did she know. She wasn't just walking out on a relationship, she was walking away from the architect of her own comfort. My name is Nate. 4. And I run North Rim Electric, the guy who wakes up at 5 a.m., calculates compound interest for fun, and keeps a spreadsheet for literally everything. Sierra? She was the aesthetic, the expensive dinners. The luxury bag hints that dropped like lead weights. And the constant pressure to upgrade everything from photographers to living arrangements. Every time I tried to talk finances, she'd get that glassy, bored look in her eyes. Friend. Kayleith Ultimate Enabler. Kaylee would look at me with toothy smile and say, Nate, you're just so practical, like she was calling me a damp basement. They were a team. The team's goal was to make sure someone else me paid the tab. When Uncle Ron told me, get a prenup, I thought he was being cynical. Now I wish I'd listened to him like a gospel. The shift happened when Granite Works. My main contractor paused. All subcontracted work for 8 weeks. It was a business cycle, a temporary lull in a trade. That's built on highs and lows. I had 6 months of runway saved. I was stressed, but I was stable. But when I told Sierra over chicken and potatoes, she looked at me like I just announced we were going to live in a tent. She didn't see a business owner navigating a dry spell. She saw a loser who wasn't funding her lifestyle. She left early that night, and the silence in my house was deafening. Saturday morning, my dog Ranger was chewing on my sock while I scrolled through Instagram. There it was, a photo of Sierra at some overpriced coffee shop, looking out the window with that pretentious thinking pose. The caption. Sometimes you outgrow people. Choose yourself. Growth moving forward. Know your worth. 30 likes. From a guy named Brandon, a guy whose entire personality was gym selfies. And motivational quotes that didn't make any sense. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I typed one word, truth. Then I hit block. 10 minutes later, my phone vibrated. We need to talk. She texted. I picked up. She started in with the air quotes when you got laid off, as if she knew anything about how my industry worked. She told me she was moving up at her firm and needed someone on her level. I didn't yell. I just asked, "So, you're leaving because a contract got delayed?" She had the audacity to say, "Finally see you don't have any drive." I laughed, cold and sharp. "Copy that," I said. "You'll have your key boxed up. Pick your stuff up Sunday." After I hung up, I didn't cry. I got to work. Through the house. Like a forensic accountant. I collected every single item of Hearst the hairdryer, the expensive skincare, the clothes Shed cluttered my space with. I labeled the bin Sierra with my label maker. Changed the smart lock codes. Wiped her access from my Wi-Fi. Dot revoked her permissions on my QuickBooks and sent an email to my lawyer Kara to kill the prenup file. But the real twist wasn't what I did to her stuff. It was what I did for myself. 2 weeks later, the Granite Works hold was lifted, but because I spent those off weeks marketing my panel upgrades to local clients, I was busier than I'd ever been. My revenue was up 40, because I wasn't wasting time or money on someone who viewed my hard work as a bank account. About a month later, notification that Brandon, the gym guy, was looking for an electrician for a commercial project. I saw Sierra's name on the CC line of an email thread he forwarded. They weren't moving up together. Phew. They were struggling to flip a house they'd bought together, and they were bleeding cash because they didn't know the first thing about project management. They were looking for a discount. I replied to the email, but I didn't address her. I addressed Brandon. My rate for consulting is $300 an hour. I require a $50 deposit up front before I even look at the blueprints. I knew they couldn't afford it. I saw the read receipt. I saw the typing bubble pop up, then disappear. Then, I saw Sierra's Instagram go private. I sat on my porch with Ranger, watching the sunset. The house was mine. The business was mine. The future was mine. I'd spent so much time being the practical guy that had forgotten I was also the guy who held all the cards. I didn't need a luxury bag to feel successful. Gulp. I just needed to know that the person standing next to me was actually on my team. Sierra wanted growth. She got it. She got to grow into a life where she has to pay for her own mistakes. And me. Just getting started. Justice isn't always a dramatic explosion. Sometimes, it's just the quiet satisfaction of knowing you built something that no one, especially someone like her, could ever take away from you. The door is locked. The code is changed. First time in years. The house is exactly the way I want it. Quiet, stable, and entirely mine. I sat on the porch steps with Ranger and watched a gray sky that looked like drywall primer. I felt tired. A deep, bone-weary sort of exhaustion that had nothing to do with sleep. Guys love to brag about being blindsided, claiming they never saw the storm coming. I won't lie to you. I saw the clouds gathering for a long time. To look away because I was so desperate for the person. I was building to finally fit the blueprint I'd drawn up in my own head. It was Sunday, 3:02 p.m. Sierra stepped out of her car, wearing a coat that seemed to pretend it was a hug, her eyes darting toward my porch like it had personally keyed her paint job. Drew was leaning against my truck, arms tightly crossed. Aggression that clearly said he would happily swallow a metal filing cabinet if the situation demanded it. She stopped right at the bottom step, hesitating. I didn't expect you to. He gestured vaguely toward the cardboard box sitting by the front door. You said you were out, I replied, my voice steady. I respected that. Behind me, Drew let out a sharp cough. It might have been a laugh, fear, or it might have just been the house settling. Sierra exhaled, bracing herself. We can still be friends, you know. I just needed some space to figure out who I was. She looked at me with those rehearsed eyes. You're such a good. You made your choice, I interrupted, my tone clean and flat. Actions have consequences. I protected what was mine. Her face flickered first with genuine confusion, then with a sharp flash of annoyance. You're overreacting. No, I said. I reacted exactly once. You just didn't like the result. She planted a hand on her hip, acting as if we were standing in some courtroom she had invented just to prosecute me. You didn't have to make this so ugly. I made it clear, I countered. She took a step up. I didn't move an inch. Fend. But I made sure I filled the space, forcing her to halt. The box sat between us like a final verdict. What happened to you? She asked, her voice dropping into that soft, dangerous register. You used to be kind. Still am, I said. I'm just done being convenient. Across the glass, Drew raised his eyebrows. You good, I nodded once. Sierra looked past me into the house, scanning the rooms as if she were trying to inventory what she'd lost. This is just childish. What was childish, I said, was thinking you could slam the door shut and still expect to keep the key. Today, we returned the key. Bet. She huffed, trying to find a new angle to manipulate the air between us. We're adults. We could talk about this. We did, I said. This is me talking, and this is me finishing. Picked up the box and held it out. Up. She locked eyes with me for a beat longer than necessary, desperately searching for the old script I used to follow, but it wasn't there anymore. Up. She took the box, clearly heavier than expected, her arms dipped under the weight. You'll regret this, she whispered. I don't do regret, I said. She turned away. The porch light, finally been fixed, so the photosensor actually worked, stayed off in the daylight. I watched her walk down the steps, the sun throwing a hard, sharp line across the concrete. From the window, Drew mouthed the word. Fuse up. Cold. Calculated, I corrected, and closed the door. The latch clicked shut, sounding like a final period at the end of a long, exhausting sentence. Monday morning, I went into full hustle mode. Sent an email blast to a list of 30 past clients, offering a solid discount on panel upgrades. And I pushed a new ad for EV charger installs with a clean graphic and transparent pricing. That started to gain traction. Received a message from a design-build startup I'd met at a trade show months back. Summit Design and Build. The CEO was Jenna Hart, 34, sharp-suited and even sharper with her questions. He was the kind of person who read technical specs like they were a bedtime story. Their recruiter had kept my resume from a collaboration project we'd done last year. They had just secured major funding and were expanding fast. They needed a senior project lead Samion who could manage crews, talk technical shop with clients, and keep them from feeling like idiots. I went in for the interview, expecting a row of HR robots. Instead, it was just Jenna across a table, surrounded by project plans and a laptop. We talked for 2 hours. She wasn't impressed by corporate fluff. She liked receipts. I brought them. I had photos of pristine panel boards, clean pipe runs, and a massive spreadsheet of labor hours per fixture type that I'd built, because I was quite frankly emotionally married to Excel. At the end of the meeting, she leaned back. Betty, I need someone who solves problems without the drama, she said. You look like a no-drama kind of guy. I like it when the lights turn on, and the inspectors nod once, I replied. The offer came the very next day. 140,000 base, a $600 monthly truck allowance, a company phone, and a 10% bonus tied to project margins. My own shop would keep humming along with Drew handling the service calls. And if a project ever fit North Rim's scope, their procurement team could include us on the bid list. Legal had me sign a conflict of interest disclosure. I was strictly walled off from vendor selection and pricing on any job where North Rim was involved. It was a unicorn of a setup. I called Kara to look over the fine print, and then I signed. On my first day at Summit, I walked into the office and felt my shoulders drop 2 full inches. Everything was clean. Everything was labeled. The warehouse manager, Mac, hadn't lost track of a single barcode since 2012. Project managers were actually chill, not the type to carry their stress like a heavy backpack. Jenna ran meetings like a complex math problem, logical, precise, but with a personality. She listened, even when you told her a proposed schedule was pure nonsense. She did something rare. She asked the people who actually installed the gear what they thought before she promised it to a client. That is how you keep crews loyal. We clicked professionally and we clicked fast. I didn't flirt and she didn't either. We grabbed coffee between meetings because she wanted to pick my brain on how the guys in the field actually think. I told her, "You want buy-in. You show up with donuts but never the jelly ones. Dot. Those start HR incidents. Dot. And you always ask what is going to break first." She laughed. It wasn't a performative laugh either. Sounded like a woman who didn't get surprised often, but genuinely enjoyed it when she finally was. Dot. 6 weeks in, we were working late to finalize a massive schedule. At 8:45 p.m., she looked up from her monitors. "You eaten?" "I'm about to start chewing on the drywall if not," I said. She laughed and mentioned a Thai place that was still open, suggesting we grab a bite. For the first time, we didn't talk about work. We talked about her divorce from 2 years ago. Dot. We talked about my ex-fiancée and her obsession with inspirational captions. We swapped stories, shook our heads at the absurdity of it all. Silence sit in the car, without it feeling forced or awkward. As we walked to our car, she said, "This was nice. Maybe we can do it again when we aren't surrounded by conduit." "It's a deal," I said. From that point on, we were careful. No PD at the office. No weirdness during meetings. Just two adults who respected boundaries. People gossip regardless of what you do. Feet. But if your work is spotless and your timelines beat the estimates, gossip eventually gets bored and goes looking for someone else to haunt. We maintained a professional distance. No PDA within the office walls. Fex. No awkwardness during our strategy meetings. We were two grown adults who understood the necessity of boundaries. However, office rumors are like weeds, they grow, regardless of how well you tend your garden. Your output is flawless, and your deadlines consistently outperform projections. Gossip eventually starves from lack of evidence. 2 months into my tenure, Summit announced a formal holiday gala. Black tie affair, involving our biggest clients and major investors. Dot. The venue was an upscale ballroom downtown, filled with the scent of expensive cologne and high-stakes anxiety. Jenna approached me during dinner the week prior, asking, "Will you be my date?" I didn't want to make it a spectacle. I told her, "People will inevitably talk." She leaned in, her eyes steady, and replied, "People always have something to say. We have HR documentation and transparent timelines. We are professionals." I felt a surge of respect for her integrity, so I agreed. Felt genuine to say yes to someone who actually valued my work ethic as much as they valued me. 2 days before the event, my phone chimed. A LinkedIn DM from Sierra popped up. "Hey, hope you're doing okay. Thinking about you." Dot. I swiped it away. The next morning, another notification arrived. "I heard you landed a new position. That's fantastic. Maybe we could grab coffee and catch up." Thanked. The thought of sharing coffee with someone who had treated me like a disposable social media caption was laughable. I ignored her again. On the day of the gala, I wore a navy suit that gave me the authoritative look of someone who could dismantle a power grid and fix it before sunset. Dot. Jenna texted me. "Pick you up at 7, I replied. "I'll meet you there. Parking is much easier on my end." She sent a thumbs-up emoji followed by a photo of her elegant heels with the caption, "Steel toe enough for a gala." It was a small, playful moment that made me smile. Themes. The ballroom was a sea of shimmering lights and refined music provided by a string quartet. Waiters circulated with appetizers that tasted like ambition. I stuck to sparkling water, keeping my focus sharp. Things it. Jenna glided into the room, wearing a black gown that commanded respect. She carried herself with a quiet confidence, her smile signaling that she was fully aware of the nonsense surrounding us, but chose to remain above it. As we walked in, she slipped her hand through my arm, a gesture that was casual to outsiders, but clear in its intention. About an hour into the mingling, while I was deep in a conversation about circuit integrity, I felt a familiar, fan-cult gaze on me. I turned to see Sierra standing across the room in a red dress that was desperately fighting for attention. She had clearly been invited as a guest of a vendor. In our industry, fainted. Everyone eventually crosses paths in a tuxedo. She looked genuinely shocked, as if she had expected me to be rotting away in a basement somewhere, still bitter about our breakup. Sierra marched toward us. Nate?
I had no idea you'd be here.
Her voice was shrill, cutting through the ambient noise until several people turned to look. I kept my expression entirely neutral. Hi, Sierra. Good evening. Jenna's eyebrows flickered, a silent question. I offered a microscopic shake of my head to tell her it was handled. Sierra's eyes darted toward Jenna, scanning her with blatant hostility. Oh, hello, she said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. Jenna smiled back, perfectly polite and unshakable. Hi, I'm Jenna. Sierra paused, trying to manufacture a reaction. An old friend of his. Jenna didn't flinch.
Meet you.
I'm Nate's partner and his manager. Sierra's face contorted as she tried to process the information, her brain clearly lagging behind her arrogance. Partner and manager? That's quite fast.
Fast as you dumping me.
The moment my contractor hit a dry spell, I interjected, keeping my voice steady.
Dot.
And labeling it personal growth on social media 2 days later, I added. Her face drained of color.
Fair.
She stammered. Words have consequences, Sierra, I said coolly. Jenna gave my arm a gentle grounding squeeze. Excuse us, Sierra. We have investors to tend to. We walked away, leaving Sierra standing in the middle of the floor, looking like a program that had frozen during a critical update. Jenna leaned in, close, whispering. That was her. The one and only, I replied. She smirked.
You truly dodged a bullet.
The rest of the night was a success. I made valuable professional connections, dodged a few bad ideas from inexperienced contractors, and danced with Jenna. Everything felt remarkably normal.
It was a relief.
However, at midnight, my phone began vibrating incessantly. DMs on Instagram, LinkedIn requests, emails, text messages from burner numbers. Messages were a predictable script of desperation. We need to talk. That was incredibly awkward. Can't we have a mature conversation? I miss you. I made a mistake. Then, the venom started. Your boss? Really?
People are going to think you slept your way into that office.
I showed the entire feed to Jenna. We were back at her house, the dog curled up on the rug nearby. Jenna looked at the screen, her eyes cold as flint.
Fumble.
Block every single one of them, she said firmly. And if she contacts you at the office, it becomes a legal issue. Document everything. I followed her advice, building a digital dossier of every notification, screenshot,
and time-stamped log.
Dot. On Monday, our office manager, Grace, pulled me aside with a worried expression. This is an odd question, but did someone named Sierra try to contact you over the weekend? I nodded. Yes.
Girlfriend.
Dot. Grace sighed. She called our office line Saturday morning, claiming it was a family emergency. When I refused to give out your personal details, she became verbally aggressive. I wanted to let you know. Thank you, Grace.
I've logged it,
I said. On Tuesday, my old colleague Call sent me a screenshot. Dude, Sierra's telling everyone that you're having a scandalous affair with your boss.
Please.
Claiming you were fired from your last job for misconduct and manipulated an older woman to get this one. Watch your back. I called him immediately. That's a complete lie, I said. Cal muttered.
Ute.
I told her she was being insane. She's on a full-blown smear campaign. I thanked him and added the evidence to my growing folder. On Wednesday, the situation peaked. An email arrived in both mine and Jenna's inbox, addressed to human resources. The subject line read, Ethical concerns. The body of the email was filled with corporate jargon, clearly written by someone who had spent too much time reading Reddit threads about office politics.
Viewed out.
I am writing to express deep concerns regarding the relationship between employee Nathaniel White and CEO Jenna Hart. It began. This is a clear conflict of interest and reeks of favoritism. The hiring process was suspicious.
Following his termination from his previous employer,
a full investigation is required immediately. The timeline was fabricated. The assumptions were loud and baseless. The tone was smug. I looked at Jenna. She didn't look worried. She looked ready for war.
She wants a fight?
Jenna said, closing her laptop. Then she's going to learn exactly how professional we actually are. This is a dramatic, high-stakes story of boundaries,
professional integrity, and the cold reality of consequences.
The script is structured for maximum engagement, designed to be read with a steady, firm, and narrative-driven voice.
People always say,
That the loudest voices in the room are the ones trying to hide the biggest lies. I've learned that when a relationship ends, most people look for closure, but there are others who look for a weapon.
Daniel White.
And for a long time, I thought I was dating a woman who valued success. I was wrong. I was dating someone who valued control. And when she realized she couldn't control me anymore, she decided she would burn my career to the ground just to watch me struggle. She didn't know one thing about me, though. I don't play games. I keep checklists, and I always keep the receipts.
Trouble started on a Tuesday morning.
I walked into the office of North Rim Electric and found a formal complaint sitting on my desk. It was from Sierra, my ex. She claimed I was creating a hostile work environment.
Fusion.
She alleged that I had sabotaged her employment after our breakup. The document was filled with dates that didn't align and assumptions that were frankly insulting.
Few.
It was the kind of letter written by someone who thinks a fancy font makes their lies look like legal facts. I didn't panic. I didn't get angry. I took the document, scanned it.
Forwarded it to our HR department and our head of legal, Kara.
I wasn't a victim, I was a professional. By Thursday morning, I was a conference room with HR. The air was cold,
Dean Thunchin.
smelling of stale coffee and corporate tension. They asked me to walk them through my relationship with Sierra. I kept it flat. I kept it simple. I told them I was hired at the firm long before we started dating.
Being.
I made it clear that she was never in my direct line of approvals. But I presented a folder of screenshots I'd been keeping since Friday, evidence of her harassment. Her unauthorized access to my private accounts,
Season.
and her attempts to smear my name. I didn't yell. I just laid it out like a detective presenting a cold case. The HR manager nodded slowly. He told me they would document everything. If she continued this pattern, the company would pursue legal action. I left that meeting feeling clean. That same afternoon, Jenner Sierra's supposed champion at the firm received a cease and desist letter from our legal team, accused her of intentional interference with economic advantages and outright defamation. Sierra honestly thought that, because she was angry, the laws of the company didn't apply to her. Kara, our lawyer,
Read the letter and actually laughed.
she told me, Nathaniel, this isn't a thing. This is a temper tantrum on letterhead. We sent a response back that was essentially a timeline of the truth.
Beandy.
We included evidence that the complainant was nothing more than an ex-partner looking to cause chaos. We gave them a choice. Stop contacting our employees or face a lawsuit for harassment. We sent it via certified mail.
We have copies of everything.
For 3 days, the world went silent. I thought it was over. I was wrong. Friday night, I was at Jenna's house, making stir-fry. I'm a guy who knows his way around a kitchen,
Fusa.
and Jenna and I had a rhythm. We didn't let the outside world bleed into our peace. Then, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered, expecting a telemarketer. Instead, I heard Sierra's voice. She was shaking.
She didn't sound like the woman I'd dated.
She sounded unhinged. You ruined my life, Nathaniel. She spat out. Everyone thinks I'm crazy now. Brandon broke up with me. I paused, turning down the heat on the stove.
Brandon.
I asked. My boyfriend, she shrieked. He said I'm obsessed with you. He said I'm making a fool of myself. I kept my voice steady, like I was talking to a child who had tripped in the park. Sierra?
Me.
Because you decided you outgrew me when my work slowed down. I didn't parade anyone around. I went to a work event with my girlfriend. She's using you, she hissed. She just wants a younger guy. Goodbye, Sierra.
Fed.
I hung up. I blocked the number. I noted the exact duration of the call on my spreadsheet. I put my phone down and finished chopping the onions. Jenna didn't ask questions. She just set the plates.
Fix it.
We agreed a long time ago that we don't feed fires. The climax, the digital war. A week later, Sierra created a burner account on Instagram. She posted a massive,
Mitchell.
rambling rant about narcissistic men who use successful women as status symbols. She tagged Summit, our design firm. She didn't name me, but she might as well have put my head on a pike.
Fit it.
Our social media manager flagged it immediately. Legal didn't even blink. They sent another letter, this one with the weight of a restraining order behind it. Suddenly, the burner account went private. Then, it went silent.
Thebes.
Some people give speeches when they're angry. I give checklists. I had already changed the locks on my house on Friday. I swapped the deadbolts on Saturday. I pulled our prenup draft, wrote void in thick,
You.
black marker across the cover, and filed it away in the Sierra archive folder. When she came to pick up her stuff that Sunday, I didn't say a word. She tried the "you're being so cold" routine. She looked at the box of her things and asked, "How could you do this to me?" I looked her in the eye. "You wanted it out." "You got it." "You're overreacting," she tried. "This is me reacting exactly once," I replied.
Still be friends, Nate.
"We're not. Please leave." I had my phone recording on a shelf mount behind me. Drew, my colleague, stood by like a human security guard, his arms crossed. She left with her box.
That was the end of the scene.
In the weeks that followed, the drama flickered out like a dying candle. Her mom tried to contact mine, suggesting we just needed time. My mother, a woman who knows exactly what her son is worth,
Fingtion.
replied with a single smiley face and went back to baking. Kaylee, Sierra's friend, sent me a long paragraph about how Sierra deserves better. I didn't dignify it with a response. I just blocked her. Months 2 through 6 were just work. I focused on the margins. I focused on the projects. I led 3 major builds for Samita Clinic, a roastery, and a tech office. The clients loved the work.
Finged it.
They used words like professional, clear, and reliable. I printed those emails and pinned them to the corkboard in my office because sometimes, when the world tries to paint you as the villain,
You need to see the receipts in black and white.
Sierra, she's a ghost now. She tried to reach out a few more times, but the legal wall we built was too thick. I didn't need to win an argument.
Feet.
I just needed to maintain my life, and looking back, I'm exactly where I wanted to be. The quiet is beautiful, and the peace, that's something you can't put a price on.
He spent years.
Believing that if I just worked hard enough, if I built things strong enough, nothing could ever break them. But I learned the hard way that you can be the most skilled electrician in the world,
Fane.
and someone will still try to blow your fuse. White. And this is the story of how I learned that when your life is being dismantled by someone else, the only thing that matters is the paper trail. Jenna and I,
Messy office romance.
we were a project that just clicked. We kept our professional lives surgically clean because in this industry, gossip is a terminal disease. Even when my promotions came up,
Big.
I insisted that an outside project manager handle my review.
Yeah.
I didn't want any whispers about favoritism to tarnish the work I'd put in. I got the raise anyway, not because I played politics, but because the numbers don't lie.
Thing.
And I'm not a lawyer, but I've always been the type to keep a filing cabinet for everything. Everything is documented. Everything has a receipt. Then came the silence. For 3 weeks,
Van.
Sarami X vanished into the ether after that burner account incident on social media. Most people would have relaxed. I didn't. I remembered my Uncle Ron's voice in the back of my head. Always prep for the collapse, Nate.
Fees down.
Moved my money into a high-yield account she couldn't touch. I got a pedo box for my business mail. I updated my Wildrew gets my dog Ranger, and Dad gets the shop tools. And I installed a high-definition driveway camera.
Because I was paranoid.
But because I knew the storm wasn't over. It was 7:42 p.m. on a Tuesday. My phone pinged, the driveway camera alert. I saw her standing on my porch, holding a thick Metallo folder.
Feed.
My heart didn't race, it steadied. Ranger let out a low growl, more of a warning than a bark. I pulled up to the curb, kept my distance, and dialed Drew on speaker. "Pocket me," I whispered. "Be the angel on my shoulder."
Ishai.
I walked up, standing 8 feet away. "You need to leave, Sierra," I said, my voice as level as a spirit level. She looked frantic, clutching that folder. "We need to talk, Nate. You owe me this." I didn't blink.
You nothing.
"You walked away. If you have something to say, put it in a legal brief." She started her script. The one about how I'd moved on too fast, how I had used the other girl, how everyone thought I was the villain.
Then,
She stepped toward the porch. I held up a hand, blocking her path. Don't. This is your only warning. You are trespassing. I was calm. The camera was recording. Drew was listening.
run.
She eventually slammed the folder down on the porch and stomped off.
I opened that folder.
Later, it was full of printed screenshots of my life, my new relationship, and photos from a gala ID attended with Jenna.
Thing.
Scrawled across every single page were the words, "How could you?" I didn't burn them. I didn't cry. I put them in a clear, labeled bag. The next day, I didn't get angry. I got efficient. I filed for a restraining order.
You.
The judge looked at the stack of evidency texts, the harassment, the burner accounts, the porch, and it took exactly 6 minutes. Temporary order granted. It was a wall. A permanent, enforceable, statewide wall.
He tried.
One last timea text from a burner number. Hope we can talk when you calm down. I didn't reply. I forwarded it to my lawyer. The sheriff made the call. That was the end of the line.
Vent.
Boundaries aren't there to punish people. They're there to teach them where they don't belong. 6 months later, life is quiet. Summit promoted me to lead project manager. My crew trusts me because I show up.
My parents love Jenna.
My dad even asked her what her favorite screwdriver brand was. When she said, Klein, I knew she was the one.
Bot.
Ranger has a new dog door, and I've got a house that smells like fresh coffee and good.
Solid work.
I'm clearing 6 figures now, and I celebrated by buying a better label maker. Exactly where I'm supposed to be. Sierra moved on to another city, still trying to spin a story that nobody is buying.
Thing. But that's the thing about fiction, it crumbles the moment it meets a fact.
You see, the best revenge isn't getting back at someone. The best revenge is simply loving your Tuesday morning.
Finally.
Building things that stay built. And guys, we are so close to 100,000 subscribers. If you're still here, if you believe in keeping your own foundation strong, hit that button.
Tonight.
It helps us keep building this community. Thanks for being part of the process. Stay steady and keep your wiring safe.